we got internet. Woohoo! Good morning. It's Sunday again, and hope you had a great week. Hope your Easter was good, and we're ready for to start a new unit. And the title of our unit is Christ's Return: Living with the End in Mind. And you can see the poster right up here above my right shoulder there, and put that there. And so we have six lessons out of this unit, and I really think this is a good one. I think it's a good place for us to go after Easter, simply because it helps us get a handle on the fact that Jesus came, he lived, he died, he rose again. And what does that mean for us? And what it means is that we have a limited amount of time in our lifetime to make a mark, to do what matters, and to count for God. And in that process, I think we're not all very good at that. We kind of live and we get caught up in living, and we forget what really matters. But what does really matter is, what do we do with Jesus? And so to live for him is the key. That is the goal. God he didn't make us uh, to live for ourselves. He made us to get to know him so that we can live for him. And his reward is eternal. And so that's what we're striving for. That's what we're working for. Someone else I heard say that the doctrine that should dictate our lives more than any other doctrine. You know, you think about doctrine and our theology. You think about theology. We talk about the existence of God. We talk about spiritology, the Holy Spirit. We talk about Christology and who is Christ. We talk about the doctrine of the church. We talk about the doctrine of salvation. But what is it that really should motivate how we live every day? And it is the second coming of Jesus, because how we live daily and how we share the gospel and we promote him in our living, in our speech, in our actions, how we do that is really what's going to dictate not only our eternity, but the coming of Jesus again. And so it really should be the one doctrine that affects us more than any other, knowing that Jesus is coming. And how will he find us? Will he find us ready? Will he find us waiting? Will he find us anxious to see him? And so we begin with the teaching of Jesus as he and the disciples are leaving the temple the week, Passion Week, the week before he's crucified. Throughout that week, Jesus did a lot of teaching to his disciples, did a lot of teaching in the temple. We know that one of the first things that the synoptics tell us is he went right in after he'd entered into Jerusalem and went to the temple, and he drove out the money changers, turned over the tables, and he declared, my Father's house should be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. And that really set a tone for the week, kind of amped up his attack, you would say, or his declaration against the religious leaders of his day. And so he began to go there and then teach about who they were and how they had missed the point of who God is, and how Jesus had come to help us better understand and know who God really is. You might say, what does that have to do with the second coming of Jesus? Well, it was in that teaching that he did with them in the temple and then with his disciples that gives us good insight into when is that, what is that, and what do we need to know. And so the first thing we learn is the title of our lesson, Stand Strong to the End. Stand strong to the end, and just being faithful, just doing what we know to do every day, being sure, being true, following through on what we understand. If we just kept a part of God's law, the part that we kind of understand, think how better we would be. How better it would be if we just even did what we know to do. So, and by the way, standing strong and enduring to the end is what saves us. What saves us is Jesus, and it's inviting Jesus into our heart, into our lives, and surrendering our will to his will. That's salvation. But enduring to the end is just an expression of our faith, isn't it? It means that our faith is secure, our faith is strong, and we're not going to give up. We're going to continue until the end. So, standing strong to the end. Jesus has been in the temple, and in Matthew 23, really has some pretty harsh things to say to those religious leaders. He really attacks them pretty good. And then our lesson picks up at Matthew 24. And so we look first at verses 1 through 3. And our writers say that the good point for this is it's okay to wonder about the end times. So let's read that passage. Verse 1, Matthew 24, it says, "As Jesus left and was going out of the temple, his disciples came up and called his attention to its buildings. He replied to them, 'Do you see all these things? Truly I tell you, not one stone will be left here on another that will not be thrown down.' And while he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples approached him privately and said, 'Tell us, when will these things happen? And what is the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?'" So again, it's okay to wonder about the end times. A couple things going on in this passage, and I guess I should have maybe read a little more commentary on um, the beginning, though, that first verse where they leave the temple. Jesus has been in there, firing both barrels at the religious leaders. Then they come out of there, and his disciples say, "Look, look at how magnificent this is." They said, historians said that when you came from the east and you got over the Mount of Olives, and the first thing you saw was the gleaming white and the sparkling gold of the temple and the Temple Mount. After Herod had rebuilt it and had made it magnificent, um, there was no sight like it in the world. It was extremely breathtaking, and so that's why in the Psalms, we read those Psalms even before Herod built it or Herod rebuilt it. In the Psalms, all the psalmists are constantly saying, "I was excited when we went to the Mount Zion. We were on our way up to the temple." And why? Because they could see it, and it had a dear place in their hearts, but it was also extremely beautiful. And so, as they left there, again, Jesus is just firing both barrels at the religious leaders, and then they leave there, and his disciples say, "What a beautiful building, what a beautiful place." And I've often thought, what were they really getting at? And this isn't really in our lesson, but I'm just going to, make you humor me for a minute. Were they saying, you know, "You're right, Jesus. They're all whitewashed tombs." That's what he called them. He also said that you guys, you travel all over to make a proselyte, and then when you make them, you make them twice as fit for hell as yourselves. Whoa, that's pretty harsh words, isn't it? And so out of that, I'm thinking, what is their motive in saying to him, "Look at the beauty of the building"? Are they saying, they can't be all bad? Or are they saying, "What a waste that here in the inside, there's all this emptiness and all this um, nothingness when it comes to relationship with God. And yet on the outside, look at how amazing it is." And I don't really know what the point of that is, but Matthew had a point. He had a point in saying it when he did it, and maybe I'll look it up and I'll report back. I don't know. If my curiosity gets the best of me, I will. But I thought it's an interesting thing for them to say when they get outside. And then Matthew has it that this is where Jesus replied in verse 2 of Matthew 24. "Do you see all these things? Yeah, they are magnificent, but I'm going to tell you that the day is coming when not one stone is going to be left on top of another." Of course, we know that the day was coming. And I think this is also amazing too. Jesus died 30 AD in that vicinity. 70 AD, 40 years later, he really gave a generation, God did, for people to turn around, to accept Jesus, and to figure out what God was up to and what he was doing. The Jews didn't, Israel didn't, for the most part, and because of that, Jerusalem fell. Israel was destroyed, And really, they weren't a nation until the last century. Again, an organized nation to the last century. So it is amazing, isn't it, to see that and to think about that. And Jesus made that prediction, or he made that prophecy to them, and just again saying, if they would turn their way, or if they would really get it, but they're not going to get it, and the destruction is coming. And again, amazingly, God gave them a generation to change. Well, thanks for humoring me. We're going to move on now. So then, what happens? Well, there's perhaps a little time. They left the Temple Mount. They walked to the east. They went outside the gates of the city, and they crossed the Kidron Valley. They went up the other side to the east, and where the Mount of Olives is, and that's where they headed. That's where they went. And I was reading this writer of the commentary for the Sunday school lessons, and he was saying that's the number one place he likes to take people when he goes on trips there, when he takes tours there, because it is a beautiful sight from the Mount of Olives to just stand there. They have this really neat observation place built out there, and kind of get out there and look. It's a great place to take pictures, great place to see as you look across the Kidron Valley and see Jerusalem there. It is pretty breathtaking, and you think about how ancient the city really is. And so anyway, and then you think about God's presence through the centuries there. Wow. Anyway, so there they are sitting on the Mount of Olives. And so it says the disciples approached him privately, and they said, "Tell us, when will these things happen?" I don't know, what kind of things are they talking about? Well, Jesus is telling them, "I'm going to go away. I'm not always going to be here." He's telling them, "I will come back." He's telling them the stones are going to be destroyed. He's telling them, that all things are going to change. And so they're saying, "Well, when? How is this going to happen? When's it going to take place?" And they said, "What's the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" And so he begins to tell them. And I thought it was really good. Our helper, our commentator, Josh Hunt, who gives us the video that our teachers watch, he said, you need to remember Jesus answers those in order. They ask two questions, he answers them, and don't get confused about, does this follow here or does this follow there? So when will it happen, and then what will be the signs? And so you need to make sure you get all that straight when you do that. Okay. Um, all my life, I've heard people saying, "Oh, it's a sign. Jesus is coming tomorrow," or "Oh, he's coming soon," and I've always been a little bit leery and skeptical on that. Maybe because I've heard lots of people proclaim it, and then it never happens. But I also believe that Jesus is coming, and one day he'll be here. And I remember Dr. G.S. Surratt, when I was in college at Bolivar, he said, "Boys, one thing we're sure of, we're one day closer than we were yesterday." Well, it's true, isn't it? We are one day closer, and we can be assured of that. So then we get to the next section, and they titled this, "Don't Let the Dramatic Events of the World Deceive You." And boy, I think that's a great truth, isn't it? Don't let the dramatic events of the world deceive you. We can be so led astray, so deceived, so confused, so misled, and we can misinterpret so many things. So what does Jesus say? Remember, he's answering these two questions somewhat in order. First of all, he says, when they say, "When will all these things happen?" He says, "Well, watch out that no one deceives you." This is in verses 4 through 8 of Matthew 24. He says, "For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Messiah,' and they will deceive many. You're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, because these things must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these events are the beginning of labor pains." And so he's just saying, watch out for those who deceive you. Remember those answers. When will it happen? Well, there's going to be deceivers, but it's not yet. What's going to be the signs? Well, there'll be deceivers, but it's not yet. And Josh Hunt, he lists some of those things that Jesus said. There's going to be deceivers. There's going to be wars. There's going to be natural disasters. There'll be persecution. There will be apostasy. But it is a great time for missions, isn't it? It's a great time for us to be about spreading the good news of the kingdom of God. So he says, many will come in my name. And you and I may say, well, in our lifetime, have we really had anybody who outright said, I'm Jesus? No, but they insinuated it. We've had some people who claim to be messianic, and they will deceive many. And that's true. They have. They will. But Jesus said, see that you are not alarmed. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, well, we're hearing of wars today, aren't we? I still can't seem to get my head logically around Putin's activity and what he's trying to prove and what's going on. And, you hear this and you say, okay, that's maybe part of it. And then you hear something else and you think, okay, that might be part of it too. So what's the whole answer? What's the whole sum of it? And the ultimate whole sum of it is he's a sinful dictator. He is evil. And he is setting out to destroy people for his own gain, for his own glory. That's the bottom line. And we've lived for a long time, really, in the world since the United States became a world power. We've lived for a long time with very little of this going on, at least not on a harsh scale. And, a little war here, a little war there, that kind of thing. But it just says to me that, not that I'm saying the end is near, the end is near, but that we just need to check those things and say, come, Lord Jesus, you in your timing, you come. He says there'll be famines and earthquakes in various places. And he says, all these things are the beginning of labor pains. What a great analogy. When a woman is about to give birth and she begins to have contractions, she begins to have labor pains, then they are maybe a few minutes apart, maybe several minutes apart, and then they become stronger and stronger and stronger. And so what a great illustration that is for us, that we see there's going to be, little things happen maybe over several years, and then we begin to see them more and more readily known. And so it's the beginning of those kind of things. Well, and that had to do with don't let the traumatic events deceive you. Try to keep our emotions in check. Try to keep ourselves under control. Sometimes we just need to take some chill pills and breathe a sigh of relief and say, God's got it all. He can handle it. He knows what he's doing. Then we go to Matthew 24, verses 9 through 14. And the title of this one, they've given it is, don't let persecution keep you from sharing the gospel of Christ. And so Jesus says, then they will hand you over to be persecuted, and they will kill you. You will be hated by all nations because of my name, and many will fall away, betray one another, and hate one another. Many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, because lawlessness will multiply. The love of many will grow cold. Gosh, lawlessness, and he's not just talking about breaking the law, even though our prisons are overcrowded, but he's talking about breaking the law of God, lawlessness. And then he says in verse 13, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. This good news of the kingdom will be proclaimed in all the world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. And so I know that we in the Great Commission circles have said, when all the world hears, when all the world, every nation, every tribe, every people group, when they hear, they have the opportunity to hear. That's why there are so many groups that are working hard to get a New Testament, get a gospel message in their language so they can hear about Jesus, so they can understand that. And so, we're working hard to do that because I believe that's part of what's going to usher in the second coming of Jesus. And is that up to us? No. But if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, I believe the Father won't tarry any longer. I believe that the Father will be ready. He knows the time, he knows the hour because he knows all things. But also, God knows when the timing is right as well. He sent Jesus into the world when the timing was right, when the fullness of time had come. And so here we are. Well, just a couple of thoughts out of that. We're out of time here. But I've had so many thoughts this week, and I cannot seem to get an understanding in my mind um, why there are people who think it's okay to confuse children, teaching them sexuality issues that even adults had not have to deal with in their lives. Other than the fact that they just want to destroy children. I think about Jesus saying, you'd be better off to have a millstone tied around your neck and cast into the sea than to lead one of these little ones astray. Maybe I'm getting on a soapbox here, but when Jesus talks about lawlessness multiplying, I think about the laws of God and how these people are promoting this, and it's just in the last 15 years, it's gotten out of control. And the confusion. God's not the author of confusion, folks. God made you as He made you for a purpose and a reason. And to think that you're something else is a lie from the devil. I'm not pulling any punches here. I'm just saying this is the way it is. God's law is right. And if you think you can make it up yourself and do something else, good luck there. I'm not going there, at least not on this issue. I'm not going to do that. And then whining and griping and complaining about the fact that, they're making a stand against Disney. Well, I'm in the agreement of many that Walt Disney would just cringe if he knew what they've made Disney to be in our world, whether it's societal norm or not. Come on, you just can't do this. It wasn't his nature or his desire at all, as I understand. And then, being accused of, or I feel like we are being accused for standing up for the law, being the bully here. And, they can call me the bully all they want. Why? Because I am telling you the rules. When was the last time that the kid who they're on the playground and they're doing something they had not to do, and a kid says to him, "If you don't do what's right, I'm going to tell." Are they the bully? No, they're turning around and going to say, "You better not tell her. We're going to beat you up." Now, who's the bully in that story, right? So this is how this works to me. The bully is these people who come back to us and say, "How dare you tell us the law? How dare you tell us what's right?" And they think they're bullying us. But the bottom line is they think they can bully God. And Jesus says, the lawlessness will multiply. That says to me, people are going to keep thinking they can bully God and get by with it. They're going to keep thinking, if this works, well, let's try something else. Let's get a little deeper. Let's get a little worse. And I'm convinced that God has already turned multiple people over to a reprobate mind. I believe we have a whole mess of lawmakers in Washington, D.C. who are Catholic, Christian, whatever else, in name only. And their faith doesn't amount to a hill of beans, other than it's a good title for them to put on their resume. Maybe they'll get elected. Maybe they'll get more votes because of it. But folks, it's time that we stood up and said, we're tired of those people. We're sick of it. And the lawlessness in our land is going to kill us. And you can't bully God. So, there's another soapbox I got on. Gosh, how'd that happen to us anyway? Well, just, as I said, um, Josh Hunt said those things, here's a great quote from our good Missourian Mark Twain. He said, "It ain't what you know, excuse me, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." Well, that's a good statement, isn't it? And then somebody said, "We all ought to get into the habit of saying, I might be wrong. I often am." And boy, that is the truth, isn't it? We don't want to be caught guilty of deceiving people or leading them in the wrong way or doing whatever. We need to stand on God's truth, His law, and that's what we need to promote and we need to deal with. Well, there are lots of deceivers in the world. There are lots of people who will also fall by the way. And Jesus said there will be many who do that. He wasn't saying that endurance would earn salvation, but that endurance would be the marker of true faith. That's what R.C. Sproul said, and I believe it's so true. Well, enough. I got to go. So do you. God bless you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.